So here's my dad, and he's just, I can't even describe what he looks like. His hands were so big and so worn and so calloused, and he would always wear the same, after a while he couldn't even have buttons, he just would get zippers, and he was always the same fisherman's cap, and in the summer he'd always have the straw hat. So I want to introduce you to him so you have a little visual of what he looked like. I mean, he was just big as a bear. You just could just, and I was always, I ended up being taller than him. But I was always just at the point where, you know, just great guy to hug. You know, again, I'm talking about inspire loyalty. You can't just see it a little bit when you look at him. So that's my dad. And the three areas that I'm going to try to say, here are some stories for you, or share the stories, are, I think, the definition of what it means to inspire loyalty. Because, like I said, there's so many little bits of wisdom in the book. I'm going to share in three areas. I think the formula, if you will, for inspiring loyalty is to make sure you're mindful of the impressions you make, the accountability you take, and the appreciation you show. I believe that those three things will help you inspire loyalty that will grow. Now, let's start with impressions. And the first impression story is, I'm just at a K-State. I'm so full of myself. None of you were ever 22-year-old full of yourself, I'm sure. But I was completely full of myself, and I landed a job in an office. It was so cool. I was going to be working at Anya Temporary Services down on the plaza. I was right across from Swanson's when it was not Hall's, and I was right at Topsy's Popcorn, and I'm in hog heaven. I got this great job, and my dad, a man with an 8th grade education, who I was a butcher, decides that he wants to tell me a few things before I start my job in the people business. He's the one who dubbed it the people business. I was going into the staffing industry, and I was going to wear a suit to work, and I was going to go to an office, and I was the only person in my family to do that. My brothers were in the meat business, and my sisters were all stay-at-home moms, and they might have taught for a little while, but for the most part, nobody had ever worked in an office. So my dad decides that he wants to sit me down and have a conversation with me across the butcher block table, which was the gathering place in our family home, and say, I think it's time that we have a little chat. Before you go to work tomorrow, I want to make sure that you remember that tomorrow the first hunk of meat you sell is yourself. Okay, this is when you look at your father and you say, seriously? I wasn't a half-fat-looking 22-year-old. And I said, you really want to tell your daughter that tomorrow the first hunk of meat you sell is yourself? Seriously, Dad? And I was making fun of him. I was rolling my eyes, and he knew it. And he looked at me, those big brown eyes you saw, and he said, yes, I do. And you can call it any fancy words you want to call it. You can say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. You can say anything you want. But if you're not mindful about the impressions you make every time you meet someone, and it sounds to me like you're going to be interviewing people and placing people on jobs, you're going to meet new people every day. If you're not mindful of the impression you make, you're not going to be as successful as you want to be. And I know you. You're competitive. You want to be successful. So yeah, I'm going to tell you that you need to make sure that tomorrow the first time you meet yourself is yourself. And every day after that when you meet someone new. Got it? Okay, Dad. And then I started thinking about him, and I started thinking about the impressions that he made on other people and how he would just immediately get people attracted to him. But maybe he does know a thing or two. And that was the moment, defining moment in my relationship with my father. Being the girly girl I was, I tried to stay inside, fold laundry as much as I could, and not work with him outside. Because when you're around him, you just had to work. It was that moment that I decided that maybe he could tell me a thing or two.